A young woman stands with both hands pressed flat against a wall, held in a painful, humiliating position. She doesn't dare move, because a man has made the rules crystal clear. As long as the red light on the wall stays on, she has to stay exactly where she is. Cameras watch her every second, but everyone has a limit, and before long her body gives out and she collapses. The instant she breaks the rules, the landlord storms in and gives her two choices: get back into position or die. Terrified, she forces herself upright. Seeing how weak she's become, one of the men decides to help her. He presses a large nail against the back of her hand, raises a hammer, and drives it straight through, pinning her hand to the wall. The pain is unbearable, but nobody shows an ounce of sympathy. Left with no choice, she places her other hand on the wall too, and the hammer comes down again. Both hands are now nailed in place. To understand how she got here, we need to go back to the beginning. Her name is Sarah, a recent college graduate starting an internship. Looking for a place to live near work, she visits a residential community that seems almost too perfect. Everyone she meets is warm and friendly, greeting her like she already belongs. The only catch is that the building is packed with people hoping to rent the same room, so Sarah figures she has no chance and starts to leave. Then the community manager, Jerry, stops her. He explains that apartments here aren't first come, first served. What matters is compatibility. After a short conversation, Sarah is accepted on the spot and becomes the newest resident. She's convinced she's found the perfect place to start her new life. The community is called 1BR. The next day, while moving in her belongings, Sarah notices a one-eyed man standing on the third floor, silently watching her. The moment she spots him, he hurries away. It leaves her uneasy, but the feeling fades when she meets her neighbor, Brian. Brian is polite, charming, and eager to help. He carries some of her luggage and invites her to a barbecue downstairs that evening, and Sarah happily accepts. At the party, an elderly woman gives her a tour and introduces her to the other residents. Everyone is kind and unusually welcoming, but among all the smiling faces, one person sits apart. The same one-eyed man is alone in a corner, quietly reading a book. During dinner, he suddenly approaches Sarah and tries to give her that same book, insisting it changed his life. Thrown off by how strange he is, she politely refuses and heads back to her room. In the middle of the night, a disturbing sound jolts her awake. She presses her ear to the wall to figure out where it's coming from, but by the time she listens closely, it's gone. The next day, she asks Brian if he heard anything unusual. Instead of answering, he just reminds her she can come to him whenever she needs help. That night, Sarah prepares. She wears headphones to bed, hoping to block out the noise. It doesn't work. At the exact same hour, the eerie sound returns, louder and more unsettling than before. The next morning, she finds a piece of paper slipped under her door. At first, it looks like a routine notice about a no pets policy, but the red warning at the bottom reads more like a threat than a reminder. The next violation, it says, won't be handled with a note. Shaken, Sarah heads to work, but she can't stop thinking about the one-eyed man. When she runs into him that morning and tries to greet him, he immediately turns and disappears down the hall. At the office, her co-worker Lisa notices how distracted she is and suggests they spend the evening together at Sarah's place. That night, Sarah tells Lisa about the noises and the threatening warning about her cat. Lisa tells her not to dwell on it and to take things one day at a time. It helps, and Sarah finally falls asleep. But later, a strange smell wakes her. Something is burning. She follows it into the living room, spots that same warning paper, and realizes the microwave is running. With a terrible feeling in her stomach, she opens the microwave door and finds the charred remains of her cat. She stumbles backward in shock. Then a dark figure rushes past, grabs her from behind, and ties her to a chair. At first, she assumes it's the one-eyed man. Then the mask comes off, and it's Brian, the same friendly neighbor who's been helping her since day one. Without a word, he pulls a syringe out of a box. Sarah fights with everything she has, and when he grabs a stun baton, she strikes first. She kicks him to the ground and bolts for the door. Making it outside just before he catches her. She screams for help and runs straight into Lucy, another resident who happens to be awake. For a second, Sarah thinks she's saved. Then Lucy grabs her and drags her back, helping Brian overpower her. Sarah calls out to every resident she passes, but none of them help. What she doesn't understand yet is that the entire community is in on it. Back inside, she comes face to face with Jerry. He tells her exactly why she's been targeted. The group discovered she was planning to move out after all the strange incidents. In this community, leaving is not an option. Before she can react, they inject her with a sedative. When Sarah wakes up, everything has changed. She's in a sealed room, and her clothes have been swapped for a hospital gown. She screams, but instead of rescuers, Jerry and his group walk in. The truth is worse than she feared. No one can hear her from inside this room, and they've already used her phone to message her friends, family, and co-workers, making it look like she left the country for a long trip. As far as the outside world knows, Sarah is simply gone. Brian orders her to stand facing the wall with both hands pressed against it. When she pleads for her freedom, he silently pulls out a pair of pliers, and the sight alone freezes her. Jerry then explains the rules of what he calls a game. Follow instructions and behave, and she'll be rewarded. Refuse, and she'll be punished. To prove they're serious, he brings in the one-eyed man and reveals the truth about him. His missing eye and ear weren't accidents. They were punishment for resisting the community's rules. With no choice, Sarah takes her position. Brian explains the posture is designed to inflict suffering. It seems manageable at first, but the strain slowly spreads until every muscle aches. Then she notices the indicator light on the wall. When the light is on, she must stay perfectly still. She can only rest when it turns off, and the camera above records any attempt to cheat. Jerry calmly insists all of this is for her own good, a statement so absurd it nearly breaks her. Surrounded by people with total power over her, all she can do is endure it while tears roll down her face. After a full day of agony, the light finally switches off, and Sarah collapses. A meal is pushed through a slot in the door, and starving, she crawls over and eats off the floor. Then the light turns on again, and she drags herself back into position. Day after day, the cycle repeats until she becomes almost unrecognizable. One day, the elderly woman enters with a chair and tries to reassure her. She claims every resident once stood in this room, and that the process isn't punishment, but a scientific method to erase painful memories and start a happier life. Sarah isn't fooled. She knows this place is a cult. But knowing the truth doesn't help her escape, and eventually she reaches her breaking point. Before the light even turns off, her body gives out, and she can't force herself back up. Jerry and Brian walk in. Sarah tries to explain she's physically unable to continue. Jerry's answer is immediate. He pulls out a handgun. The message is clear. One bullet would end all her suffering. Adrenaline snaps her back, and she forces herself into position. But Brian isn't satisfied. He removes a large steel nail from a box and walks toward her, and only then does she realize they're going to nail her hands to the wall. Every instinct tells her to fight, but with Jerry's gun aimed at her, resistance is impossible. Slowly, she raises her hands and presses them against the wall. From there, the abuse reaches a new level. The community brainwashes her day after day, repeating the same twisted ideas, trying to convince her this place is her true home and to erase who she used to be. Then one day, Sarah thinks she hears her father's voice through the haze, waiting for her at home with dinner ready, urging her to find the strength to come back. Whether it's a hallucination or a last burst of will, it gives her the motivation she needs. Ignoring the pain, she tears her hands free from the wall. The effort nearly kills her, and she collapses unconscious before she can escape. When Sarah wakes, she has no idea how much time has passed. Jerry and the others are gathered around her, and to her surprise, they aren't angry. Jerry embraces her and congratulates her. She's passed the test, and from now on, she's allowed to move freely through the community. The women tend to her wounds, brush her hair, and help her recover. But as they do, Sarah notices something disturbing. Every single woman has the same scars on her hands. Each of them was nailed to the wall, just like she was. Now the next stage of her indoctrination begins. Jerry holds regular counseling sessions built on total honesty, presenting the community as one big family where no one keeps secrets. Sarah is also required to study the book The One-Eyed Man Tried to Give Her. Written collectively by the residents, it's the foundation of their beliefs, grandly titled The Power of Community. Over time, Sarah learns how the place works. Most residents have long since cut ties with the outside world and truly believe they've found a better life. Everyone is expected to smile and greet neighbors at all times. Anyone who breaks the rules is punished by the entire community. And here's the strange part. After being punished, the victim is expected to show gratitude. Once punishment is accepted, everything is forgiven. And the next day, everyone acts like nothing happened. Sarah never stops thinking about escape, but whenever she looks ready to act, the one-eyed man quietly signals her to stop. Days turn into months, and eventually a whole year passes. Thanks to her obedience, Sarah earns Jerry's trust, and he even gives her access to one of the community's biggest secrets, the surveillance room. Inside, countless screens show the daily lives of every resident. Nobody here has any privacy at all. Then Sarah notices a camera behind her, watching the surveillance room itself. When she asks who's on the other end, Brian refuses to answer and tells her to stop asking questions. Soon after, Sarah spots the elderly woman having some kind of medical episode on one of the monitors. Brian immediately calls for help, and everyone gathers at the old woman's home. At first, Sarah assumes they're there to save her. Then Lucy brings out a set of equipment, and Brian calmly explains the community's decision. The elderly woman can no longer contribute, and the community doesn't have the resources to keep supporting her. Sarah tries to step in, but she's helpless as the residents suffocate the old woman with a plastic bag, carrying it out with chilling, routine efficiency. Not long after, the community decides Sarah has fully adapted, and as a reward, they arrange a husband for her. To her shock, it's the one-eyed man she noticed on her very first day. For the first time, Sarah hesitates. Part of her wants to believe him. Then Jerry arrives in a panic. Someone has found the community. It's Sarah's father. Jerry warns her that her father can never learn the truth about this place, or the consequences will be fatal. Moments later, her father is at the door, come to take his daughter home. This forces Sarah to confront memories she's buried for years. The reason she left home was that her father had an affair while her mother was seriously ill. When Sarah found out, she wanted to tell her mother, but couldn't, knowing how fragile she was, and her mother died without ever learning the truth. Now her father deeply regrets it and wants a chance to make things right. For the first time, Sarah hesitates. Part of her wants to believe him. Part of her wants to go home. Go. As they embrace, Sarah spots Brian standing behind her father, quietly holding a knife. In that instant, she understands exactly what will happen if her father stays. So she makes a painful choice. She says cruel things and pushes him away, forcing him to leave angry and heartbroken. It works, and her father leaves alive. With that, Sarah resigns herself to a hopeless future. The one-eyed man later admits he once dreamed of escaping too. But after losing his eye and ear for resisting, he gave up, and now he believes acceptance is the only path left. He hopes Sarah will reach the same conclusion and stop fighting a battle she can't win. Before long, the community picks a new victim. It's Lisa, Sarah's co-worker. After losing her job, Lisa rents a room in the same community, walking straight into the trap that consumes Sarah. Jerry takes an interest in her, and soon Lisa faces the same isolation, torture, and conditioning. But unlike Sarah, Lisa refuses to break. She's even more defiant than anyone expected, fighting back so hard she bites off part of Brian's ear. Seeing this, Sarah volunteers to talk to her. She explains how the community works and urges Lisa to submit temporarily, earn their trust, and wait for the right moment to escape. But Lisa refuses to listen. To her, Sarah is just another brainwashed resident. She rejects the advice, kicks her, and makes a desperate run for freedom, only to be knocked to the ground after a few steps.
Spoiled little princess. Shut up! Wait, no, Lisa, wait.
When persuasion fails, the community turns to force. Jerry ties Lisa to the floor, orders Sarah to hold her head down, and places a screwdriver in her hand, while he picks up a hammer to finish the job himself. For a moment, it looks like Sarah has no choice but to obey. Then at the last second, she turns and drives the screwdriver straight into Jerry's neck. She grabs Lisa and runs, but freedom is short-lived. They barely get a few steps before Jerry reappears, still alive despite the wound, this time carrying a gun. Before Sarah can react, he opens fire and kills Lisa. Even injured, he refuses to let her escape. But Sarah has finally reached her limit. Consumed by rage and grief, she tackles him to the ground, grabs the screwdriver, and ends the life of the man who destroyed so many people. With Jerry dead, Sarah takes his gun and runs. The residents surround her from every direction, but the moment they see the weapon, their courage vanishes. Nobody wants to be the first one shot. Then Brian steps forward. Even now, with everything collapsing, he still thinks he can control her. And instead of attacking, he tries one last time to fill her head with the community's ideology. Sarah has heard enough. She pulls the trigger and kills him on the spot.
You can't even say it. I'm not gonna do it.
For the first time since she arrived, the two men most responsible for her suffering are gone. Sarah keeps running toward the exit. She's almost there when someone grabs her from behind. It's the one-eyed man, and he takes the gun from her hand. For a split second, it looks like he's chosen the community over her. Everyone expects him to stop her for good. Instead, he turns the weapon and shoots the man restraining her. The one-eyed man has finally made his choice. Using the last of his courage, he gives Sarah a chance to escape and places himself between her and the crowd rushing in. The sacrifice snaps Sarah back to reality, and she runs faster than she ever has, desperate to put distance between herself and the community. Eventually, she slows down, and for the first time, she starts to believe she might actually be free. Then she notices something that chills her to the bone. A surveillance camera is mounted nearby, aimed directly at her. As she looks around, more red lights flick on, one after another along the street. The truth hits her. The community may be far larger than she ever imagined, and even now she might still be trapped inside its reach. But Sarah refuses to give up. No matter how impossible escape seems, she has to keep trying. So she starts running again, disappearing into the darkness of the night. So the moral of the story is, if an apartment manager says your rental application depends on personal chemistry, run before you become part of the community newsletter forever.